What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, I'm so glad you found us. Now, before we dive in, let me ask you something. How many of you have ever laid in bed at 2 a.m., replaying a conversation from 3 days ago, wondering if you said the wrong thing? Or maybe you've sent a text message and then spent the next hour analyzing why they haven't responded yet. Did I sound too eager? Too formal? Did I use too many emojis? Not enough emojis? If you're nodding your head right now, or if you literally just checked your phone to see if someone texted you back, then this video is 100% for you. I'm Mia, and today we're talking about something that affects millions of people but rarely gets the deep faith-based treatment it deserves. Overthinking. And listen, I'm not just talking about this as someone who's read about it in books. I'm talking as someone who used to be the CEO of Overthinking Incorporated. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because we're building a community of people who want real, practical faith that actually works in everyday life. And trust me, after today's video, you're going to want to stick around for more content like this. Now, here's what we're going to cover in today's video. First, I'm going to tell you exactly what overthinking looked like in my life. And I mean the embarrassing 2 a.m. anxiety spiral details. Then, we're going to dig into the real root causes of why we do this to ourselves. But most importantly, I'm going to share with you the game-changing truths that God taught me about breaking free from this mental prison. And guys, when I say this changed my life, I mean it literally transformed how I experience every single day. By the end of this video, you're going to have 7 practical tools you can start using today. All right, let's get real about overthinking and how God wants to set us free.
Let me paint you a picture of what my life looks like at the height of my overthinking. Picture this. It's 2 a.m. and I'm lying in bed staring at the ceiling. My body is tired, but my mind is throwing a full-scale production of What If, the musical. Earlier that day, my boss had said, "Good job on the presentation. Simple enough, right?" But by bedtime, I had analyzed every syllable. Did he mean it? Was there a but he didn't say? Did I talk too fast? Did I forget something important? Was he just being polite? What if he's planning to let me go and was just being nice? And then, I started overthinking my overthinking. Why can't I just accept a compliment? What's wrong with me? Other people don't do this. God probably thinks I'm ungrateful. I should be thankful, not anxious, but I can't help it. What if this is just who I am? What if I never change? Sound familiar? I bet it does. The thing about overthinking is that it feels productive. It feels like we're solving problems, like we're being responsible, like we're preparing for every possible scenario. But here's what I learned. Overthinking isn't problem solving. It's problem multiplying. When we overthink, we're not actually dealing with reality, we're creating alternate realities, most of them worse than what's actually happening. We're taking one small concern and turning it into a choose-your-own-adventure book where every path leads to disaster. Now, you might be wondering, how did I get here? Why do I do this to myself? These are the questions I started asking when I finally got tired of my own mental exhaustion. Overthinking doesn't just appear out of nowhere, it has roots. And those roots often go deeper than we realize. For many of us, overthinking started as a survival mechanism. Maybe you grew up in a home where you had to read the room carefully to stay safe. Maybe you learned that if you could just think through every angle, you could prevent bad things from happening. Maybe you discovered that anticipating problems made you feel more in control. For me, I traced my overthinking back to childhood. I was the kid who needed to know the plan. If we were going somewhere, I wanted to know when we were leaving, how long it would take, what we would do there, when we would come home. Not knowing made me anxious, so I learned to think through every possibility. As I got older, this manifested in different ways. In school, I wouldn't just study for a test, I would create elaborate worst-case scenarios about what would happen if I failed. In relationships, I would analyze every conversation, looking for hidden meanings and future problems. The problem is, what starts as a protective mechanism often becomes a prison. The mind that was trying to keep us safe ends up keeping us stuck. God doesn't waste our struggles. Even our overthinking, as painful as it can become a pathway to deeper relationship with Him. The very thing that feels like it's separating us from God can become the thing that drives us closer to Him. Think about it. When we overthink, what are we really doing? We're trying to control outcomes. We're trying to be omniscient, to know all possibilities. We're trying to be omnipotent, to handle every situation perfectly. In other words, we're trying to be God. And when we finally realize that we can't be God, that we're not supposed to be God, that's when real freedom begins. My wake-up call came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was in my kitchen, making coffee, when I realized I had been standing there for 10 minutes, coffee maker off, lost in thought about a conversation I might need to have with a friend who might be upset about something I might have said wrong. I was living in a world of possibilities that didn't even exist yet, and I was letting those imaginary scenarios steal my peace in the very real present moment. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just overthinking situations, I was overthinking my relationship with God. I would pray, but then spend hours analyzing whether I had prayed correctly. I would read the Bible, but then worry about whether I was interpreting it right. I would feel prompted to help someone, but then second guess whether it was really God's voice or just my own desire to feel useful. I was so busy trying to figure out God that I was missing God. And then I remembered a verse that I had read 100 times but never really absorbed. Be still and know that I am God. From Psalm 46:10. Be still, not think harder, not figure it out, not analyze every angle. Be still. It was like God was gently saying to me, child, you're working so hard to understand me that you're forgetting to simply be with me. That morning, I made a decision. I turned off the coffee maker that I had never turned on, sat down at my kitchen table, and said out loud, God, I'm tired. I'm tired of thinking myself in circles. I'm tired of trying to be you. I need you to teach me a different way. And you know what? He did. The first thing God showed me was that He created my mind to be a gift, not a burden. The capacity for deep thought, for consideration, for analysis. These aren't character flaws. They're part of how He designed me. The problem wasn't that I was thinking, the problem was that I was thinking without Him. There's a difference between godly consideration and anxious overthinking. Godly consideration seeks wisdom and then acts. Anxious overthinking seeks certainty and then keeps seeking. Proverbs 3:5-6 became my anchor. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Notice what it says. Lean not on your own understanding. Not, don't use your understanding, but don't lean on it. Don't make it your foundation. Don't make it your God. God began to show me that every time I spiraled into overthinking, I was essentially saying, God, I don't trust you to handle this. I need to figure it out myself. It wasn't intentional rebellion. It was misguided love. I loved God so much that I wanted to get everything right for Him. But in trying to be perfect for God, I was forgetting that God's love for me wasn't dependent on my perfection. The second thing God taught me was about the nature of time. When we overthink, we're usually living in one of two places. The past, replaying conversations, analyzing what went wrong, or the future, imagining scenarios, preparing for problems that may never come. We're everywhere except where God is, which is right here, right now. Jesus said in Matthew 6:34, Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. He wasn't being pessimistic. He was being realistic. He was saying, "You have today, I've given you today. Don't waste today worrying about tomorrow." Now, I want to be clear about something. Recognizing the problem didn't instantly solve it. God didn't just flip a switch and make my overthinking disappear. Instead, He walked with me through the process of creating new patterns, new habits, new ways of thinking. Let me share some of the practical tools that God used to transform my relationship with my own mind. The first tool was what I call the 5-minute rule. When I found myself spiraling into overthinking, I would set a timer for 5 minutes. I would tell myself, "Okay, you can think about this for 5 minutes. But when the timer goes off, you're going to pray about it and then choose to focus on something else." This did two things. First, it acknowledged my need to process without condemning it. Second, it put boundaries around it. I wasn't suppressing my thoughts, I was containing them. During those 5 minutes, I would often realize that I wasn't actually solving anything. I was just rehashing the same concerns over and over. And when the timer went off, I would pray something like, "God, I've thought about this all I can. I'm giving it to you now. Help me trust you with it." The second tool was the reality check. I started asking myself 3 questions when I caught myself overthinking. Is this actually happening right now, or am I imagining it? If it is happening, what can I actually do about it today? What would I tell a friend who came to me with this same concern? That third question was particularly powerful because I realized I was much kinder and more rational when advising others than when talking to myself. The third tool was a simple surrender prayer that I developed. God, I notice I'm trying to control something that's not mine to control. I give this to you. Help me focus on what you've actually given me to do today. I probably prayed this prayer 50 times a day at first, but slowly, it began to retrain my mind. Instead of spiraling deeper into worry, I was creating an off-ramp back to peace. Finally, I started using Philippians 4:8 as a filter for my thoughts. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. When I found myself dwelling on worst-case scenarios, I would ask, is this thought true? Is it noble? Is it lovely? Usually the answer was no. Anxious overthinking rarely meets the Philippians 4:8 standard, so I would redirect my thoughts to something that did. As I began to practice these tools, something deeper started happening. I began to see the connection between my overthinking and my understanding of God's character. Much of my overthinking, I realized, was rooted in a belief that God was like an unpredictable authority figure who might be pleased with me one day and disappointed the next. I was constantly trying to read his mood, to anticipate his expectations, to avoid his disapproval. But as I spent more time actually talking to God instead of just thinking about God, I began to experience his heart for me. I began to understand that his love isn't conditional on my performance. I began to see that he's not waiting for me to mess up so he can withdraw his affection. The God I met in prayer was patient with my questions, gentle with my fears, and unshakable in his commitment to me. This God didn't need me to have all the answers. This God wasn't threatened by my uncertainty. This God was big enough to handle my struggles and kind enough to walk through them with me. As my understanding of God's character deepened, my need to overthink began to diminish. When you truly believe that God is good, that he loves you, and that he's in control, it becomes easier to trust him with the things you can't figure out. First, you are not broken. Your tendency to think deeply, to consider multiple perspectives, to care about outcomes, these are gifts. They become problems only when they're disconnected from trust in God. but the capacity itself is not a flaw. Second, God is not frustrated with you. I know it might feel like He's waiting for you to get your act together to stop being anxious, to finally achieve the peace that seems to come so easily to others. But that's not who He is. He sees your struggles, He understands your heart, and He's patient with your process. Third, you don't have to fix yourself before you come to God. You don't have to overcome your overthinking to earn His love or attention. Come as you are with your spinning thoughts and worried heart and let Him meet you there. Fourth, healing is possible. I'm not saying it's easy or quick, but it's possible. The patterns of thinking that feel so automatic now can be changed. The peace that seems so elusive can become your normal experience. But it happens one choice at a time, one prayer at a time, one surrendered moment at a time. Fifth, you're not alone in this. If you're watching this video, you're part of a community of people who understand what it's like to live with an overactive mind. You're part of a family of faith that includes everyone from the Psalms writers who poured out their anxieties to God to modern believers who are learning to trust Him with their uncertainties. Now, let me give you some concrete steps you can take starting today to begin breaking free from overthinking. Step 1, acknowledge the pattern. The first step is simply acknowledging when you're overthinking. You can't change what you don't recognize. Start paying attention to your thought patterns. Step 2, create a sacred pause. When you notice overthinking starting, create what I call a sacred pause. Stop what you're doing, take 3 deep breaths, and say a simple prayer like, God, I'm starting to spiral. Help me come back to you. Step 3, ask the right questions. Instead of asking, what if this happens? Or what if that goes wrong? Start asking better questions. Step 4, practice. Philippians 4:6-7. Make this passage your go-to response to overthinking. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Step 5, develop a daily practice. Create a daily practice that anchors your mind in God's truth. This might include starting your day by reading a psalm, praying before you check your phone. Step 6, find your anchoring verses. Identify 3 to 5 Bible verses that speak directly to your tendency to overthink. Write them down, memorize them, and use them as anchors when your mind starts to spin. Step 7, practice present moment awareness. Throughout your day, practice bringing your attention back to the present moment. When you notice your mind wandering to past regrets or future worries, gently guide it back to what's happening right now. Thanks for spending this time with me today. If this message has been helpful, I'd love for you to share it with someone else who might need to hear it. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. God is with you, and so is a whole community of people who are learning to trust Him more deeply every day. Until next time, may you know the peace that comes from resting in God's perfect love.